Hello everyone, my name is Weisong Yang. I'm a fourth year PhD student at the University of Bristol. And today I'm going to talk to you to work on applying smart home technologies and machine learning techniques to dementia research. The title of my talk today is Detecting and Monitoring Behavioral Patterns in Individuals with Cognitive Disorders in Home Environments. Can I use this? This seems a bit low. Yeah, so this is a multidisciplinary project and it involves people from both the engineering side and the medical side. I will give you the presentation today and then we'll join the panel. As we all know, dementia is one of the major causes of dependency among the elderly, and the number of people with dementia worldwide is still growing with a rapid speed. Traditional doctor visits, on the other hand, have their limitations. For instance, some solutions that scan the biomarkers of dementia may not be, might be expensive and invasive. Furthermore, some biomarkers may not be sensitive enough to reflect how someone is managing in the real world. In other words, subtle behavioral changes may occur in people with early cognitive problems. Some symptoms are prevalent across people with mild cognitive impairment or dementia. It's very common that they experience short-term memory problems and struggle to remember scheduled events or determine appropriate words for expression. This is where smart home technologies come into play. So smart home technologies show us the potential of monitoring daily behaviors, and this offers the promise of monitor the disease status of patients conveniently and sensitively. By extracting symptom expression rates, we may be able to identify previously unseen behavioral biomarkers with smart home technologies. The smart home system we use in our project is called Sphere, sensor platform for healthcare in a residential environment. The technologies we are looking at include wearables, video cameras, passive infrared, and environmental sensors such as light, electricity, etc. For example, this figure in the middle is an early version of the Sphere wearable, and this box on the right is an environmental sensor. These three smaller pictures at the bottom right are the pictures we got from the video camera. As we can see, these pictures are just silhouettes. The identity of the person will be hidden in consideration of the privacy. Currently, the Sphere system has been used in projects that work on fall detection, the monitoring of Parkinson's disease, the recovery of patients after hip replacement surgery, and the dementia research, of course. So speaking from a high level, digital health and smart homes are about how we can acquire data from patients and how we can use this data to influence both the clinical decision making and support patients themselves in managing their own health conditions. Our project is called CUBOId, Continuous Behavioral Biomarkers of Cognitive Impairment. Like its name says, it's looking at cognitive impairment, trying to detect and review previously unseen behavioral biomarkers. I will firstly describe the participant recruitment and then tell you more details about the data analysis and the findings. So the CUBOld project uses the Sphere system, and the participants were eligible to participate if they had a diagnosis of MCI or dementia within the last 2 years. In the end, we recruited participants that were at least 50 years old and were native or fluent English speaker, and they needed to have the capacity to give informed consent. And finally, they needed to be willing to have the Sphere system installed in their homes for the project duration. Overall, we collected data from 17 houses. The time span and data quality of each house vary. Some house has only less than 100 days of data, and some house have more than 600 days. This figure on the right is an example floor plan of one of the houses that have the Sphere system installed. For example, we can see that there are 2 video cameras, one installed at this location and the other one is installed at this location. The original plan of our participant journey is shown in this chevron list. So before the study, our participants will take several medical tests, and this medical data will be recorded as baseline for future comparisons. And the Sphere system will be installed into our participants' homes at this stage. After 6 months, we would collect the first round of data, and our participants will need to complete several behavioral tasks And also, there was a memory game. I will tell you more details about this behavioral task in my next slide. There were also some follow-up cognitive tests at 6 months. At 12 months, we would repeat what we did at 6 months and collect the second round of data. But as we also know, COVID happened, so in the end, we couldn't follow exactly the same or the original plan. Some things were cancelled, and the data collection and the visits were also interrupted and delayed to different degrees. That's why I said in my last slide that we have different time spans of data for each house. Now let me tell you more details about the CUBOId tasks. Most of the data is collected by the survey system passively, and originally we also designed some behavioral tasks. Tea making is an example. So the participant would be given some instructions and make a cup of tea. Meanwhile, the survey system would record his or her data during the task. But like I just said, in the end, this behavioral task didn't happen. And there was also a memory game that can be completed on a smartphone. And finally, we also have a TV show task. And this is dance work, and it's about speech data analysis. The TV show task itself, it's like the Goggle box. The motivation of TV show task is that naturalistic conversations around the home may be a potent diagnostic cue for memory and language problems in early dementia. This TV show task was performed by 9 participants with MCI or dementia. So we used the tablet to record the conversations record the conversations with the living partner as they watch the TV for 30 minutes over 5 consecutive days. The patient's living partner will act as a control since they are not diagnosed as having MCI or dementia. So in the rest of my presentation, when I say control, what I mean is the patient's living partner. Okay, back to the TV show task. This task was repeated up to 3 times at 6-month intervals. The analysis of speech data recorded during the TV show task will enable the differential diagnosis of MCI from Alzheimer's patients and of each patient from the control. And the changes we detect when comparing data recorded at different time intervals also have the potential of showing possible progression from MCI to early Alzheimer's. Now let's move on to other aspects of the CUBOId project. Like I said a few slides ago, the survey system has different types of sensors. Apart from speech, what we are looking at primarily is the data collected by wearables. So the survey system includes wrist-worn accelerometers. The recorded data will be broadcast to radio receivers by radio links. And these wearables will simultaneously record this accelerometer data and this received signal strength intensity, which is RSI in short. So this RSI signals basically reflect the distance from the wearable to the radio receiver. The closer the distance, the stronger the signal. And this relationship forms the basis of our localization efforts. In this figure, this first row is our annotations. These annotations were collected by the technician upon system installation. The technician carried all the wearables in a bag and they walked through every room. The real-time location would be collected using an app. Meanwhile, the RSI signal, which is the signal row, the accelerometer data, which is the last row, will be simultaneously recorded during the workaround. Like I said at the beginning, we're applying machine learning techniques to dementia research. And the localization is a typical example of where machine learning is involved. Essentially, we are using these annotations as ground truth labels to train our machine learning models. The indoor localization task can be considered as a classification task. It's similar to the case where we want to classify, for example, if this animal in this image is a dog or a cat. The difference is that our data is not images, it's time series, which means every data point has a timestamp. And the annotations are not dogs or cats, but different rooms in the house. Along the way, we also made some difficulties and challenges caused by the nature of our data. I will not go too deep into details about this because of the time limit, but I will add a few more things at the end of my talk. In this project, we are primarily looking at 3 symptoms. The first one is wandering, which means the patient wanders around the house because of memory problems. The second one is shadowing. Sometimes patients will follow the caregiver around because of anxiety and uncertainty. The final one is sleep disturbance. As patients with MCI or dementia usually suffer from different degrees of sleep disturbance. The progression of MCI and dementia can be characterized by an increase in these commonly seen symptoms. Understanding the relationship between normal behaviors and the expression of these symptoms is an opportunity to understand and quantify the disease status. Now let me show you some visualizations and some of our findings. So this figure shows the complexity of location sequences for both the patient and the control in one house. Every dot is a day. These dashed lines are the rolling median of these dots. The red is the patient, the blue is the control. And the time span on the x-axis is roughly 9 months for this house. We picked the 3 time intervals. The first row is from midnight to midnight, which is a whole day. The second row is from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Third row is from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. What we can observe in this figure is that moving to the right along the time axis, we can see that the red overtakes the blue in all 3 columns. This could be a sign of increased wandering behavior, and it could also be an indication of the increased probability of developing dementia. This figure measures the total activity levels for the patient and the control in the same house. Still, every dot is a day. The red is the patient, the blue is the control. The first thing we can observe is that there are some hollows from roughly mid-June to mid-April to mid-June. Because during this time period, the patient tended not to wear the wearable, so there were a lot of missing data. The second thing is that there is a slight increase in trend in the red, which means the total active levels of the patient gradually rise. This further supports the observations we make in the last slide, especially in the second row, because there is a clear rising trend in the red. Now let's look at the second symptom, which is shadowing. So this figure measures the time spent together for the patient and the control for the second house. The time axis and the time span on the x-axis is roughly 5 months for this house. So essentially we have 2 location sequences, one for the patient and one for the control. And we are comparing the, like it says here, the similarity, it's hidden, the similarity between these 2 location sequences. So let's imagine if these 2 location sequences become more and more similar over time. This could be an indication of that the patient and the control spend more together than before. So what we can observe in this figure is that there is a change. At this time point, there is a change in similarity, which means that from this point on, the patient and the control spend more time together than before. And this could be an indication of increased shadowing behaviors. Now let's look at the final symptom, sleep disturbance. This figure measures the total activity levels of a third house. Every dot is a day, and this solid line is the result of a locally weighted linear regression of these dots. The time span on the x-axis is roughly 14 months for this house. The time interval we picked is from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., which is the general sleep time for this patient. This figure has a very interesting pattern. We can see that there is a bump from roughly June to September, which means that in the summer, in these warmer months, this patient had a worse sleep. What I want to add to this seasonal effect is that we need to be careful when we see changes, because these changes might have different causes. It might be disease progression, or seasonal effect like this, or even lockdowns, and so on. So this makes the whole task even more challenging, and we need to be extra careful about these possible confounders. In summary, the CUBOId project is looking at the analysis, modeling, and the visualization of sensor data coming from smart home systems to monitor the disease progression of MCI and dementia. We base our approach on the data collected by the Sphere system passively and during the TV show task. This data carries not only the information of participants' physical conditions, but also the activities they undertake. But since the data collection involves free living activities, along the way we also met many unique challenges and difficulties, including the presence of noise, missing data, and the lack of suitable annotations. But on the other hand, all these demanding conditions also open door for numerous open questions and opportunities. Our current and future work include missing data imputation, multimodal sensor fusion such as audio, video, or more environmental sensors. All this will bring different things to the table. For instance, missing data itself can be used in two ways. First of all, if the missing data is caused by the patient forgetting to wear the wearable. So let's imagine if the patient forgets to wear the wearable more often than before, then this could be an indication of memory loss itself. Instead, if the missing data is caused by software or hardware issues, and under this condition, if we impute the missing data, we can have a more complete data set to look at and to analyze. And finally, in order to show the clinical value of the metrics we designed, we need to evaluate the performances of these metrics against clinical tests, and this will be done at the cohort level. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you for your attention.